Game Theory podcast has an interesting take on why the Chicago Bulls are setting up to have tremendous cap space in the summer of 2026. And the key thing, it's not to go after a big name free agent. We're going to talk about what that thing is on today's episode. We're also going to look at Newell having his pre-draft worked out with the Chicago Bulls, and the Bulls mentioned as a potential destination for both Reid and Julius Randle. We're talking about all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And so it's here, right? The Chicago Bulls now starting to be more theories about what the Chicago Bulls are going to do. We know that AK talked about patience, and he talked about the summer of 26. He's talked about that plan, and I want to talk about it, right? So the Game Theory podcast came out. They had an episode in which they were discussing it, and they talked about the fact that the Bulls may be setting themselves up for the summer of 26 to have not to go after a big name free agent, but to re-sign Coby White, Dosunmu, and just setting up to kind of re-up some of their key players, right? And I've been very, vocal in the sense of the Bulls cap space sets them up to do a few things, right? Of course, this first thing is potentially signing Josh Giddy, right? And we'll talk about how that ties into this in a second. But then it's also Dosunmu, right? And what is his next contract going to talk about? Me and Pat over on Locked on Bulls talked yesterday about how like Dosunmu was almost being forgotten about, it seems like, right? By some of the media and maybe even like how we talk about the Bulls' plans. But with that said, like the Bulls have to have that plan and have to have that idea. Now, if the Bulls were to re-sign Josh Giddy, Coby, and Ayo, all the new contracts, the Bulls still do have cap space. They still will have cap space, even cap space to go after another marquee free agent. Now, if you do that at that point in time, you're going to be wanting to tie in the rest of your roster to it's going to be a lot of rookies, right? Which is fine there, which the Bulls are going to have 2 players on rookie scale deals at least by then. They'll have the rookie of the 2025 draft. They'll have Modest Buzelis. Hell, they'll also have the rookie of the 2026 draft. So that's 3 players right there. You'll then have Coby, Giddy, and Ayo. That takes you up to 6 players under contract at that point in time for the Chicago Bulls. Then maybe team-friendly contracts to some people, right? Things like that. But like that still leaves you a little bit of wiggle room, right? With having 6 to 7 players under contract, and now you're looking to fill out your roster with maybe 1 key marquee free agent and then some vet minimums, right? Which isn't necessarily the most feasible thing, but could be something that the Bulls are looking for. In the Game Theory podcast, like they talked about like that the Bulls may show a sign of confidence in this roster, right? Now, I said I wanted to link it to the conversation around Josh Giddy yesterday. So we heard that the Bulls are more open in doing the 4-year, $20 million deal, which still puts Josh Giddy at the $30 million annual average value. But the thing that it does is that it kind of aligns Josh Giddy's contract with at the same time that Modest Buzelis will be up for his rookie contract extension. And in that episode, I speculated that may be something that maybe the Bulls are going to be trying to do with a lot of their signings is line up everything. And we've seen teams do this before. That way, if you have some serious confidence that your rookie or your young player at that point is going to develop into a player that is going to take a lot of money to re-sign, then okay, cool, you do that. You line yourself up. But it also it doesn't necessarily say that either. It could very well just say, hey, this is the time period that we're going to give this team. It's another 4 years of looking at this team. At that point, Modest Buzelis is going to be going into year 5. At that point, we'd have a lot of years of both Coby and Josh Giddy. We know what that is. The rookie that we draft in 2025, hell, even 2026, will have a few years under their belt at then, and we can take a long, hard look at where this team is projected to be, right? Are the young players? Is Modest Buzelis, the 25 pick, and the 26 pick, are those looking like 3 players that could become a new nucleus and core around you? And is that where we want to focus, kind of planning our money around And, at that point, maybe Coby, Io, Josh Giddy, maybe not all three of those guys are still going to be around here or they have a future here at that point in time. So it sets you up to do a lot. It sets you up to evaluate. It sets you up to hopefully compete if you're young. Put it on your young players to continue to develop Giddy, Coby, to show you what they showed at the end of last season. And that's a more calculated plan. And I'll say this, that would be the most forward-thinking thing that AK and Eversley have done in a while. And so I'm not mad if that's the plan. I'm not mad if this summer of 26 you get set up to do either. You can say, hey, we're going to take a look at, we're being in position to put a big offer sheet out on somebody like Jaren Jackson Jr. or something like that. Or we're going to be in a position to re-up our guys. And at that point, we really take a look at like who these players are. So I think that's what it comes down to in this one overall. And we'll just see what happens with it. But in that, I want to talk about extensions, right? The Bulls have a number of extension eligible players on their roster, which is, I said it before, we have $61 million in expiring contracts, right? So, and a little bit more than that, technically, if you count Coby White and Dosunmu, and that's close to like 80-something million dollars in expiring contracts, right? Who's going to get that extension? You got Nikola Vucevic, right? Who, Vuce, I think at this point, the Bulls have to shop Nikola Vucevic. I think that the Bulls can't repeat the mistake that they should have did last offseason, and that's shop Nikola Vucevic. Now, he is an expiring contract, so it makes more sense to shop him now. But I think you got to shop you got to shop Nikola Vucevic. There's no way he gets an extension at the end of this deal, to me, in my opinion, personal opinion. So I think you got to shop him. I don't think he's coming back. Then you got Coby White and Dosunmu. They're both extension eligible. Now, this is about extensions. I don't think either one of these guys are going to sign extensions. We've talked about that before. Because of the team-friendly deals that they signed on their last deals, extensions really don't make sense for those players. Coby can get about $26 million on his next contract if he signed it as an extension, if he goes in through unrestricted free agency, just becoming. He doesn't even have to go meet with any other team, but just by becoming an unrestricted free agent, it makes him eligible for over $40 million. So, and I'm not saying he's going to try to sign for all that money, but I am saying that it is something, an option, and that's why get a little bit more money. That's why you always pay on team-friendly contracts, especially if the player plays better than that team-friendly contract. So Coby and Io are probably less likely. Now, Io, how likely would he be, right? Coby, I don't think there's any chance he signs the contract extension. I know he said at the end of the season, well, me and my agent are going to talk about the contract extension, and we can see what that's going to look like, right? But I don't think his agent will advise him to take the contract extension because it just doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense to do it that way. It just doesn't really benefit him to do that. Now, Io, on the other hand, if he signs a contract extension, the most that he can get is about $15.5 million on the annual average value on the base, the first year of the contract. He can still go up the average 3% raises year after year, 8% raises, whatever the raise is, year after year. Is Io more likely to sign a contract extension? Here's why I asked that. A, he had an injury, right? Like, let's be clear here. Even statistically, it was a down year, but he was starting to come out of that. He was starting to come out of the down statistical year. He was starting to shoot the ball better, all those type of things. But the injury. And Io has had, really, when you go look at it, quite a bit of injuries over his career. Now, they haven't always left him out of playing games, but he has suffered some injuries, right? So would Io be more interested in signing the contract extension? Yes, he could get the same, what is it? He can account for 20% of the salary cap. I think, no, it's a certain amount, right? So there's a chance of that. And I think Io, how this season plays out for him could be a big factor in that. But I think that there is a chance that if the Bulls go to the table with Dosunmu, that they may be able to convince him to sign a contract extension if they try to push for it this year. Now, Io may want to bet on himself, and I think that would be the smart thing for him to do is bet on himself. But I think there's more of a chance, and I still say no, but I think there's a higher chance than not. And then you have Zach Collins, Dalen Terry, Javon Carter, Kevin Huerter. I don't think any of those players sign contract extensions in the middle of the season. I just don't. Unless Dalen Terry has a huge uptick this year to start off the season, I don't think a contract extension makes sense for him. Zach Collins, I think even if the Bulls do decide that they want to bring him back, I think they're gonna that'll be an end of season thing. I think they're going to keep that flexibility right up until the trade deadline of using that as an expiring contract. Javon Carter, you better fucking not. Kevin Huerter, maybe. I do think that there's a chance that the Bulls look at this and say, we need shooting. If Kevin Huerter comes in here and is the shooter, yeah, he could be valuable out on the market, but there's a chance that the Bulls look at that and say, nah, even if at the worst we need that off our bench. So I don't think there are going to be a lot of early extensions for this team. I think that Io's definitely a possibility. I'll say that. Dalen's a possibility if he has a great start to his season. But I think Coby, no. Vooch, no. And again, that's not to say that Coby's not going to re-sign with the Bulls. This is just as a contract extension during the season. I don't think those guys sign it. So the Bulls are going to have to prepare for some money. And I guess we'll see what that leads the Chicago Bulls. But the Bulls were mentioned by Bleacher Report as being possible destinations for Julius Randle and Naz Reid. And I look at this and I say this. How much sense does Julius Randle make for the Chicago Bulls? Julius Randle had a great and amazing playoffs. I want to be clear there. He played some of the best basketball in his career in the playoffs this season, and I got to give credit up to that. Naz Reid, of course, is a fit. We already know. I know some people have problems with him because he's a small ball center, but at the end of the day, I think that Naz Reid could play the 4, he could play the 5. Even if we do end up drafting a center this year, he can work out, right? Naz Reid is one of those players that I will not be mad at all. Julius Randle is going to be more interesting. If Julius Randle does opt out of his contract, he's already making $20 million. He's going to probably want upwards of 30, 35-ish million dollars. The Bulls can't get there. Not in cap spaces. Sign and trade, that opens up some possibilities, right? If the Bulls know that they're losing both Naz Reid and Julius Randle, would they want Nikola Vucevic in a sign and trade? I don't see that. I don't see Vooch and Rudy Gobert working personally. Again, we've seen it. You don't want to force Vooch too far out the paint and make him just a jump shooter because that's not where he thrives at. You definitely can't play Rudy Gobert anywhere else, right? So I don't see that. So then you're looking at other things. Would they be interested in Patrick Williams if they're losing both Naz Reid and Julius Randle? I think they're going to want to keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker in that case. They also have Terrence Shannon Jr., who I think earned himself a role with his play in a couple of those playoff games, so I think there's that part of it. Overall, I'll say this. I don't think that the Bulls really makes huge sense for Julius Randle. I don't see it. He's a really good basketball player. I want to make no mistake about it. Flawed, yes, but he is a really good basketball player. The money just does not work. Naz Reid, though, and we talked about this, the Bulls have about, after re-signing Josh Giddy, if it's that $30 million, and their draft pick, they sit at about $18-ish million in flexibility. They can create more space in that by finding a destination for Nikola Vucevic, right, and not taking back as much salary. And keep in mind, once you know you're replacing a guy, sometimes you just trade a guy. I.e., once the Bulls knew that they didn't want Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry here anymore, they moved those guys. Now they did get some decent picks, but once your asking price comes down, it's easier to move off some people. So I think that that's a case that the Bulls could look to do if they know that if they meet with Naz Reid, yeah, I'll sign here. I'll sign here for $23-ish million. The Bulls clearing another $5-ish million in salary cap space, it can happen at that point in time. They may even be willing to pay a couple of second-round picks for a team to absorb some of their salary to be able to get that done. So there's that part of it. Naz Reid is a more viable option, I think, here for the Chicago Bulls than people are giving it credit for being. So we'll see what happens there. The Bulls will be this interesting team to watch this year because their aggression, if they see a free agent that they want, they can be aggressive about going out there and getting that free agent. Absolutely can be aggressive about getting that guy in here to be a member of the Chicago Bulls. It's just, will they show that level of aggression? Or are they going to punt it and wait till the summer of 2026 where they've already talked about some things, right? So let me know what you guys think on that down below. Is that a strategy? Do you think that the Bulls make sense for either Julius Randle or Naz Reid? I think Naz Reid is the clear one that just makes more sense. Whether he's playing the 4, whether he's playing the 5, I think you can thrive in either one of those roles. His ability to stretch the floor as a three-point shooter also works really well in that case. Julius Randle, with how we've heard them being down on some of the prospects in this draft for not being kind of two-way bigs, things like that, I just don't know if Julius Randle fits that mold either. But maybe I'm wrong on that. Do you want to see the Bulls go after either one of those guys? Let me know that down below. But all right, before we go, we got to talk about the Bulls draft workouts, right? I've talked about how they they didn't all their workouts were basically all players that were projected to go in the second round or go undrafted. Well, that has changed recently. The Bulls have had private workouts with Newell and Drake Powell, and those are two guys that are slated to go in the first round. I think right now we sit 22 days until the NBA draft, and that time is going to go by really fast. And over these next 22 days, basically 3 weeks, I think that we are going to see a lot of movement by the Chicago Bulls as far as bringing in players that are projected to be first-round picks. Now, Drake Powell really impressed the Chicago Bulls as well. I think that Drake Powell is in the mode of players that the Bulls have drafted before. I think that he fits that mold of like a Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, even a little bit of a Patrick Williams. And I know that's going to be triggering for some. I had a tweet yesterday where I said this. To me, people who hear somebody has a similar play style to Patrick Williams and they immediately get this PTSD, like, oh my God, we can't do that again. Patrick Williams' play style, his skill set was never a problem. That's a skill set you want on every team. The problem was that P. Will was the wrong guy. He didn't have the right mentality. He didn't have the right drive. He didn't have the right desire to be able to go out there and use that skill set the right way. So Drake Powell reminding some of like a mix between Dalen Terry and Patrick Williams, to me, okay, that's fine. Unless you see the same mentality coming out of that, I don't think you can really use that comparison. Yes, he has the potential to be a switchable defender. His shooting, I think, is even more advanced than either one of Patrick Williams or Dalen Terry at this point of their careers, their first years coming into the NBA. Definitely Dalen, maybe even P. Will. And I think his attack, his aggression level, how he does go to the rim, how he does attack on closeouts, how he does do those type of things. I think that Drake Powell has a tremendous upside. Now, I still think it may be a little bit of a reach to go after that at 12, unless the Bulls, again, identify that as the player that they feel that they don't want to miss on, that they feel can turn into a star. They don't want to risk taking a shot, not taking a shot at him and it turning into something for the team. All right, cool. If that's what you see, great, right? So while I think there are some other players with that similar skill set and style that make maybe a little bit more sense for the Bulls, I'm not going to be mad at them if they go aggressively after Drake Powell. I'm just not going to be upset at that. But I think it comes down to, all right, is that the best use of your assets? Would you be better off trading down at that point of trying to get him? Maybe. I think that there's a case to be made there. So that's what the Bulls have to really look and survey and ask themselves, like, how they're planning on using this talent. Is that Drake Powell the best option there? But then we heard that Newell came in, right? And keep in mind, the thing that's common between Newell and Drake Powell, they're both two-way players. Both players that have really good upsides as far as offensively and defensively. Drake Powell with his on-ball and off-ball defense, his catch and shoot ability, his athleticism, all that's really there. Newell, kind of the same thing. Tremendous versatility defending-wise. If he's your 4, if he's your 5, he's going to be able to probably switch on most players. Think Joakim Noah alike in that case. Solid rebounder, solid shot blocker as well, an okay passer. And reportedly in this workout that his shooting really impressed him because it's more advanced than they thought, and his defensive IQ, kind of in the way that he talked about the game and talked about defense, was really something that impressed as well. So hearing that Newell and Drake Powell both have really surprised the Chicago Bulls are really good. I love to hear that because these are two guys that I think make some sense for the Bulls. At 12, though, there's some question on is that going to be a bit of a reach. But I've said it before, in my preferred mock draft, which is NBADraft.net, which is the one I love because they update several times. They don't wait till a week. They'll update it as soon as they hear some analysis, right? They update it a lot. The last one was updated on the 1st. But they start having guys like Rasheer Fleming, like Thomas Sorber, going back up. Newell going back up. They have him at number 17. So still a little bit of a reach if that ends up being the pick. But I think it says something that these guys are starting to rise up once private workouts are starting. And that's where a lot of these guys are going to shine at. Derek Queen as well. And I said it, even though I have my concerns over Derek Queen, if the Bulls bring him in for a workout and he shines, great. It may have to change the way that some of your plans work going forward, but we'll see. Overall, I think the Bulls are really starting to put some things together here as far as their draft preparation. We're probably going to hear a lot of names coming in here to Chicago to work out for the Bulls over the next coming days, and I think that's a good thing. Thomas Sorber is one that I'm interested to see if they work out in person. Rasheer Fleming, interested to see if they work him out in person as well. Right, Rasheer Fleming, a guy that's been talked about in the 20s that NBA Draft.net has him going at number 10 now, number 11 now to the Portland Trailblazers. So I think these are players that I really want to see the Bulls take a look at, as well as with the Cedric Cowards and those type of players, and just do your due diligence to bring in the right guys. Let's hope that that's the case. But all right, that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like we like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See Reid if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.